The story begins, believe that killing their opponent will be a piece of cake. Number told Number not to be reckless, and he further explained that right now, security was tight and it would be better to avoid taking commissions for the next 6 months, but Number was unconvinced and believed the enforcers were just a bunch of idiots. And with their 10 years of operation experience, there was no need to be overly cautious. Number turned serious and expressed how they, who were hiding in the shadows, had no right to be careless. On the side, Number agreed, but it only made Number retort in anger since he knew what he was doing. Seeing that no one wanted to conform with him, he decided to go. Without hesitation, his figure disappeared. Back to the real world, Number complained about the bunch of cowardly bastards who were scared of a guy who only had a little talent. Now that no one wanted to avenge Number, he would do it himself. In the Common Ground district, Sunran remained seated in his sensorial chair. After the mission, he received merit points from the Enforcers Alliance, and as a reward for obtaining a legendary evaluation grade, he received times the commission fee, totaling credit points. Sunran logged out from the game while exclaiming how his heart raced despite the effortless iron grade mission. The door opened and Lan Xin emerged, asking him how his mission had gone. Sunran happily brought out the news, and since he obtained merits, it would not be long to earn merits to become a bronze enforcer. Lan Xin cheered and told him to use his money in buying a nutrient pod to replace his chair since it was bad for his body. Sunran agreed and exclaimed how thoughtful his wife is, making Lan Xin's face red. Sunran then asked her about her mission. Lan Xin said they failed in dealing with a destroyer, and a total of 10 teams were wiped out. Time passed by. Sunran and Lan Xin appeared outside the Enforcer Alliance's headquarters, the Rubik's Cube of Order. Once they get inside, Lan Xin told everyone the news about Sunran becoming a Black Iron Enforcer, and the other wives cheered for him. After sitting down, Lan Xin asked Bai Tingshuan, who was the last one to get eliminated, about the situation inside the game. She answered it was bad, and Count Dracula, who was now a duke, had successfully seized the political power of the Duchy of Wallachia, prompting the Middle Ages Gaming Company to hire bronze enforcers for the mission. This time, Sunran asked for further details. Bai Tingshuan explained that the world they were dealing with was called a fantasy world based on the European Middle Ages, set in the 10th century, and their target was Duke Dracula. During his childhood, he was sent as a hostage in the capital of the Ottoman Empire, Istanbul, and after his rise in power, he inherited the position of the Duke. In the end, there was nothing wrong with Dracula himself, and everything he had done was legal, except his fate. Sunran was interested and asked what his fate was. Bai Tingshuan explained that Dracula spent enough on the game to become a true VIP noble, and his ending should be when his father got killed by the rebel army, the Duchy of Wallachia got overthrown, and he got sent into exile as a civilian. However, he hired destroyers in the real world to help him successfully seize the title of the Duke in the game. Sunran then learned that the destroyers Dracula hired were all from the Vampire Guild. Hearing the name, Sunran could not help but click his tongue. Lan Xin asked for an update, so Care checked her display and learned that no team had returned to continue the mission. The Black Iron teams thought that the destroyer had the upper hand, and only stronger enforcers had a chance of turning the situation around. Suddenly, she noticed a change in the situation. A solo bronze enforcer codenamed Jing Qi had accepted the commission and entered the game. Sunran asked Lan Xin about the commission fee and learned that Black Iron teams were paid credit points per person, with credit points per person as remuneration due to the troublesome opponent, and additional bonuses would be given based on the individual's contribution. Hearing the awesome payment, Sunran invited everyone to continue the mission together. Bai Tingshuan was skeptical since their team had been eliminated once, and their request to continue the mission would only be accepted once they proved their team had become stronger. Sunran then brought out the news of him receiving a legendary mission evaluation grade and believed it should satisfy the requirement. His wives were stunned and amazed at how Sunran obtained such a grade. Sunran then expressed that in the virtual worlds of Western civilization, his prowess in alchemy is great. The wives were excited, so Care hurriedly sent a request. Their team, Rose of Thorns, had a new fourth member codenamed Rosebush. Sunran believed it was appropriate since he was the best man and protecting maidens as beautiful as roses. On the side, Lan Xin could not help but bore a face of disagreement. Care immediately received a reply, which agreed to their participation in the mission. But since Rosebush was a new member who only showed great spellcasting ability and had little power in the game, his remuneration would only be credit points. Seeing his wife unhappy, Sunran showed a smile and told them there was nothing wrong, and they should accept it. Lan Xin then asked Sunran if he was confident to succeed. Pointing at himself, Sunran answered that he was the great master of creation, so a few vampire buffoons would only be a joke in front of him. Lan Xin immediately tugged at his face. He was like a kid who wanted to show off, not knowing the meaning of keeping a low profile. Right then, Care accepted the commission. A portal appeared on their side. They were informed to abide by the guiding principles of the enforcers. Everyone stood from their seat, ready to face the people from the Vampire Guild. Sunran was transported into the game. He slowly opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. Together with his wives, they were inside a prison cell. A display appeared in front of him. He was granted level permission. In the game, he was Orlando, a senior official of the Ottoman Empire, and was imprisoned after being framed for conspiring treason. Sunran then thought the game company had brains and sent his team to prison to prevent the destroyer from reaching them. Kier slowly woke up and asked where they are. As soon as she took a good look at her surroundings, she screamed upon seeing a cockroach. Everyone gradually gained consciousness and saw they were sent to a horrible place. After they saw the details of their characters, Sunran expected the game company would release them on legal grounds. He then told them he knew many of the local spells and alchemy arts, and since he did not have a good understanding of his wife's abilities, he told them to explain so they could work better together. Lan Xin explained she was good with the one-handed sword and bow. She had 1 level warrior skill and level 1 archer skill to enhance her precision. Kier was an assassin and knew some attack skills with the dagger and a level concealment skill. As long as there were shadows around, she could use them to conceal herself. Bai Tingxuan was a Taoist priest. She could draw talismans and cast spells, all of which were used for support. In the European Middle Ages, she was called a wicked witch. Right then, their prison cell was opened. The man brought the news of Lord Orlando being acquitted of his charges. He was released from prison and the warden also prepared clean clothes. After a moment, Sunran changed his clothing. He then noticed his wives. They were changed into their clothes, revealing their beauty. After quarreling for a while, they arrived outside and approached a carriage. Sunran told the coachman to take them to Orlando's residence in the east of the city. On the way, Sunran's team discussed their next actions. He informed them he would start making weapons and asked them to protect him, and once weapons were ready, they would finish the demon. Kier then said someone was following them, which Sunran guessed to be Dracula's people. Knowing no one had a weapon on hand, Bai Tingxuan drew a talisman to deal with the enemy. But Sunran stopped her and told her not to fret since they were following them and they might not attack an official of the empire in public. Moreover, Sunran was not an easy target, and despite the spells being much weaker, strength and chill of his ice sting spell remained the same. Time passed and their carriage could be seen passing the bridge. At the end of the bridge, they arrived at the Orlando residence and the stalkers did not launch an attack. A servant hurriedly welcomed Sunran's group. He introduced everyone as his guest and he asked the servant to take care of them. After the carriage left, Sunran thought there were other spies around. He suspected that the coachman was one of them. Inside the dining hall, Sunran asked Bai Tingxuan to cast a silencing barrier. She made a hand seal and energy surged around her hands. Soon, a large barrier appeared around them. As he ate, Sunran informed that there were 2 ordinary humans and 1 vampire following them a while ago. After he sensed the vampiric heart, he concluded the vampire was not very strong, and if he was a destroyer, it would be easy to deal with him. Lan Xin found out in their previous battle that the strongest vampire was a count and had a level body. She told them that he created the Bat Army in charge of assassinations and information gathering, and there were 1,000 people in that army, making them Duke Dracula's greatest support. Sunran then wondered why the enemies quickly responded to their arrival. Kier stated that as an assassin herself, she believed that no matter how strong Dracula's forces were, it would be impossible to know their identities in a short time. Sunran then said that there might be a traitor within the game company who was feeding information to the enemy. Hearing their words, Lan Xin immediately contacted the admin. In a space station, Yi Qiang, the chief admin of, was informed about Lan Xin's connection. After they were connected, Lan Xin immediately reported the traitor in the company. Yi Qiang quickly commanded everyone to look up all data links made between the space station and the outside world in the past hour. The next second, the search commenced and did not find the source of the data link. Yi Qiang could not identify who leaked the information about the Thorn of Roses. Left with no other choice, he commanded everyone to monitor the administrator's every move until the mission completion. Back to Sunran's place, Lan Xin informed everyone that the traitor was confirmed. The company would compensate them for what happened. However, the destroyer now had Sunran's information. Now that they know he was an alchemist, they would attack at their weakest when he was busy making weapons. Bai Tingxuan asked if that was why he told her to set up a barrier, and if there were any informants in the residence too. Sunran confirmed her thoughts and declared he would beat them on their own game. In the vampire's hideout, a group of vampires was gathered. One of them informed the Lord it was midnight. The Lord then stood and walked away. He commanded one of his men to stay and be the point of contact, but once the situation changes, he should leave the place and report to their master. Licking his lips, the Lord exclaimed, "Let the hunt begin." In the middle of the night, the Lord could be seen running along the empty streets. He lifted his body, and with a thud, he swiftly landed on the other side of the wall. He was now inside Sunran's residence. He quickly moved. With a curved, he ran to the corner of the courtyard. Then, he stopped in his tracks. He noticed a frost rune on the ground and snorted in disdain. The paltry barrier around the residence could not keep him out. Suddenly, a silhouette sneakily dashed on his back. He immediately turned to look and realized it was an invisible assassin. Nearby, he sensed a sudden movement. He quickly dashed and attempted to grab the invisible assassin with his claws. Care smiled despite the menacing enemy approaching her. She dashed forward, slashing at the vampire lord. The dagger was so sharp and he broke into a cold sweat after seeing his decapitated fingers. Right then, a frost rune lighted beneath his foot. He quickly reacted and jumped away, evading the rune which could have paralyzed him from the waist down. Now that he could not attack with his claws due to the assassin's sharp dagger, he could only attack with a ranged weapon, the nemesis of the closed combat weapon like the dagger. A stone appeared on Care's finger. She flicked it toward the ground. The frost rune activated and successfully trapped the lord. Without hesitation, Care plunged her dagger into his heart. Knowing the vampire had great vitality, Care used Bai Tingshuan's exorcism talisman. The vampire erupted in flames and his roars reverberated through the quiet of the night. After dealing with the vampire, she did not even shed a drop of sweat. She wondered if her sisters were doing fine. On the other side, Lan Xin activated her sword skill, Gongsun Sword Dance. When Care arrived, she was almost finished subduing the enemies with the dual swords enchanted with the burn attribute Sunran had given her.
That's it for today. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.